Oh, everybody, it's time again for this week in supervision. I hope you all have had a great week so far. And so we're going to go on and jump in to this week in supervision. And what I try to do is try to provide some insights to supervisors. A lot of supervisors have come out of our training, and their goal is to go in and become supervisors. And they're looking for content. But not just for supervisors, also for other mental health professionals that are looking to tighten and strengthen their skills, see things from a different lens. I try to provide some insights there. And sometimes we throw test questions in too, which is helpful. And so we're going to jump on in into what we have today, because I always go over and we want to limit that. And I want to try to see if I can share my screen real quick, just to give a quick highlight of our training, our supervisor training. We have another one in July, on July 24 and 25. So if you're a supervisor in Alabama and you're looking to become, or you looking to become a supervisor in Alabama, or check us out. Check us out for our training. And we will have more information. You can always check us out at aspirecounselingal.com. We should have information there as well. We want to move on into what we have for today. And let's see if we can jump in, because we got a lot to cover. This particular session, I could not go through everything I wanted to in this session, because it was just so much to cover. But what I want to do is kind of help support us, like supervisors, with content that, again, is relative to what your supervisees might be facing. So the topic that I thought would be interesting today for this week, that as I went through with my groups, was working with phobias, right? And so let me share my screen here and just give you a picture of how we started out and how I normally start out these types of sessions. And so there's some things that we kind of need to understand and know, or the supervisee needs to understand and know, when it comes to working with phobias. And so I started to ask questions about that. And so I started off the group by asking. Now, we went over some ethics questions and things like that too. It's a lot of stuff that goes on the group, but I'm kind of summarizing. I stick with a lot of the clinical end. So I start off, who would feel comfortable treating a phobia? Believe it or not, and by the show of hands that I got, most of, like I said, I have four different groups, and most of my supervisees had not had any experience, or very little experience, in treating phobias. And so a lot of times there's a phobia of treating phobias. And when we think about phobias don't just have to be something like, I'm afraid of dogs or cats or something like that. We've got agoraphobia, where people are afraid of spaces, places, transportation, taking transportation services, such as getting on an airplane or something like that. And a lot of times being able to treat this is not so complex. At least it hasn't been from my experience. And there's certain tools. So we want our clinicians to be ready to just jump it kind of into this. So let me move a little faster here, because I got a little bit of short video I want to show. But I asked them the question about treating phobias. We talked about the types of training that might be needed. We want you to be realistic. We want our supervisors to be realistic about what they need to bring to the table, but we don't want them to feel that they're so far away or not well trained enough to provide some of these therapy. So we talked about certifications and things like that. Exposure therapy, how important that may be to help to influence some treatment in these areas, and just the limiting beliefs about us being able to perform these treatments. So we talked about that. Also talked about, you might go to the group and say, hey, so what is a phobia? To make sure the group has a firm understanding of what a phobia is, and be willing to discuss that with them, what that looks like, because everybody has their own perspective of that. And from my opinion, it's my opinion that most mental health problems are fear-based. So when I'm helping my supervisees this week, helping them with this, I'm helping them to understand that, most of this is just anxiety-based. fear-based when we're talking about phobia. It's fear-based, but not just when phobia is not just something that's fear-based, but there's also relative ways of treating other behavioral problems that kind of requires some of the same interventions, just in a different way. And when I'm talking about what I call like emotional phobia or fear of tight knit relationships, fear of intimacy and things like that, sometimes you see uh maybe not as overt of an expression from clients, but you see some of the same fears and things that with clients. It's kind of hard for me to break down right now, but yeah. So I try to help them to understand how some of these skills that we're talking about can be used in different areas. And so let's get more into it. So I offered a multiple choice question: which term describes the fear of dogs? And the answer for this one was cynophobia. Now, I'm not saying that probably, I'm not sure that would be on the test or not, but thought it was important that they know that. We kind of all are familiar with arachnophobia because of the movie, and agoraphobia. We just talked about that fear of spaces, places, fears relative to spaces, places, transportation, being outside of your home alone, those types of things. So, and then we talk about like challenging the group. What types of phobias are you all familiar with? And like I mentioned, another thing in trying to get into the mind of the supervisee is like, how much do we deeply understand what phobia is? And a lot of us, that maybe some of you all may not even recognize, it took me a while to recognize it myself, that so much of phobia involves just a fear relative to death. Okay, because if you look at some of the phobias that's mentioned here, the fear of spiders, heights, snakes. If you ask your client, your supervisees, what fear lies beneath most phobias, you'll find that a lot of phobias, when you start processing it, is really just a fear of dying. You feel that dog is going to eat you up and make you die, or that you're going to die. I remember, the fear of needles we have it on here. I remember for myself, when I started trying to prick my finger when I, was following my pre-diabetic stuff, I had to take myself to a virtual office myself and process, like, what is your fear? And a lot of the fears are irrational. And so I had an irrational fear that once I pricked it and then I tried to push out the blood, that it was just going to shoot out and that I was going to die. And I didn't even know that was my fear, but it was really a fear of death. And a lot of times when you processing these fears with your clients, time and time again, once I process it, it's just like a ridiculous, wild fear that they have never really sometimes even thought through. And so when we're trying to help them to understand how to treat the phobia, we want to understand, we want to ask them, how would the conversation start? And so we kind of went into how the conversation would start, and we allow for some of the supervisees to offer some of the case scenarios that they have experienced, and we start processing some of that. And that's always fun too, to be able to support them through that process. But what is the fastest way to overcome fear? I asked them about that, because we're trying to get down, like, what is your concept of fear? What's your concept of phobia? What's beneath it? So you can understand what you're processing. The fastest way to overcome fear, what I suggest, is facing it. And that's relative, and we process that. So let's get down to some of the tactics here about that you might use. And like I said, this is just helpful for clinicians in general, because a lot of us have not been exposed to an exposure therapy or treating some type of phobia, right? And so if we were to have a conversation with a client, how would that start? And that's something that I'm asking the supervisees. Where would we go? What would we start with the conversation? What would the conversation be about? And so we talked about how to try to understand the difference between a more naturalized fear. And actually, one of the supervisees kind of started on this conversation, a naturalized fear of something versus a fear or phobia that's based on a traumatic situation, because there's somewhat a divergence of a treatment or variation in treatments with treating one from the other. So that's something that you might know. And so then once you get in there, we ask the clinicians, okay, well, once we get in there, what is that looking like? Because we want them to be ready to treat. What is it looking like? And so we help them to understand the importance of rating fear. And I'm going to try to leave clips of some situations, some real life situations where you all can go onto YouTube and kind of view this and maybe learn from it, and seeing an actual practitioner, actual therapist, and then a coach too, helping individuals walk through these fears that, I mean, these people are scared to death. All right. And so we're looking at rating the fear. So if you have, it's interesting, and I'm going to show, this is going to be long. I'm going to show a quick clip. I see I'm already at 10 minutes. Oh man. Okay. Let me start this over. All right. Okay. So I'm not probably going to be able to show both of these videos, but we want to rate the fear. And how do we rate the fear, or get an understanding of how bad the fear is, the phobia is? And how do you do that? If you have a client, how do you be able to determine how where this ranks on the charts as far as fear? And so with some clients, you'll discover with just mentioning what the fear is and saying dog, or mentioning a dog coming into the room or something like that, will make them just lose it just right off of that. Right. And so that's letting us know, wow, this is a pretty significant, pretty serious problem here. We could also use photos or cards. So if we have pictures of a dog, we might show that of small dogs going up to big dogs, and just trying to see, to gauge where that fear is, what level it is. And then also another really good resource to gauge the fear is to show video. And so somebody's scared of spiders, you're just showing spiders. And I actually had to, in showing some of this video, had to do an alert, because I noticed in one of the videos, one of my supervisors was looking at the snakes, and they were like, so, you kind of, you just never know, if that's a concern for someone who's in your supervision and what have you. And so video, distance exposure, gradually exposing them to maybe that dog or pet that they're afraid of, or whatever it is, that gradually. And then, I was going to say erase this. This is not correct. Post whatever the thing is that takes your pulse, and also it can take your heart rate, and let you know if you what your oxygen levels are. I forgot the name of it. You can use that in the actual intervention, connect that to the client, to their finger, and while you're talking to them, it'll start, if you have a good one, it'll start going off if the heart rate goes up too far, and that lets you know, kind of back off, have them stand up, stretch, things of that nature. Okay. And so what I want to do, and what I like to do for my supervisees, is I learn from a lot from visual. And so sometimes it's good to just have a good look at what's going on. And so this is an example of a situation to where the woman here, she's very fearful of just having mention of a dog. And so how do you deal with that? I'm going to see if I can share the screen here and get that. We're way past time. Okay, we're just gonna play a quick.
To think about the past without the pain.
Let me stop this.
Look at me.
Let me stop it. I want to make sure y'all can hear it. Share. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm messing this up. Okay, the sound is on.
Dog at all.
Let's start this over.
Past without the pain. One of the things we're going to start on is we're going to get you to touch dogs.
I can't touch a dog right now.
Go ahead, Penelope, look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
Okay. I heard a dog.
You couldn't hear a dog at all.
She's hearing dogs in her mind. That's what it'll do to you.
You know why you
no
hear
dog.
something?
I'm freaking out. Wait a minute. No.
Penelope, look at me. Penelope, look at me. Stop.
Okay.
Relax.
Okay.
When I said the word dog to you, what's the fastest thought that comes into your mind?
That I'm gonna be attacked.
We're going to change that picture. You change that picture, you'll change the association, you will change the response. What nickname would you give the new Penelope?
Okay, so you all could go and watch some of this yourself. I'll try to post the links, but it's important to kind of find out how fearful the client is with whatever it is the phobia is about. And also, if you're going to actually bring a dog or pet or something like that to where the client can see that, it's important that you help your supervisees to know the importance of having them go through breathing interventions, breathing techniques, deep breathing. You know, I've watched him normally, and he's kind of aggressive, to be honest, but you know, normally you want to make sure that your client, when they start to get excited like that, that they're breathing, because they can actually pass out. And so that's some things there. I better end. I'm not able to go real deep into this as much as I want to, because we're already into 15 minutes of time here. But I'm going to leave you all some links that will get you exposed to some exposure situations, because a lot of times we actually are the ones that have the phobia of treatment because we feel that we don't have what is needed. We're not teaching our clients or supervisees or helping to support them with, you know, getting the proper training that's needed for them to get into other areas, you know, because there's a lot out there that we can be getting involved in, but a lot of times we're limiting ourselves because of our own fears. And so I like to bring the visuals many times to the clients so that they can, you know, see what it really looks like. This other video that I was going to show, it was a video of a male, and he was afraid of dogs, but I'm going to leave the clip in there. And a lot of these exposure therapies can they happen a lot faster than some of the normal treatment as far as the results. And that's what I've experienced. And so I hope that this is helpful. Like I said, I'll have some of the links here to where you can go and look at some of these videos yourself and see what you think. But that was what we talked about this week in supervision. I hope that that you all have a great weekend, and we'll try to get back at this next week. Y'all take care now. All right. Bye-bye.